Welcome to the podcast.
All right.
Pilates for PTs, from business to clinical. Hi y'all, my name is Stephen Dunn. I co-own Core Therapy and Pilates in Austin, Texas, and I'm the founder of Pilates for PTs. I've been a physical therapist for over 20 years, and I've been teaching Pilates and gyrotonic in my physical therapy practice for the last 15 years. In this podcast, I interview experts from all over the world so that you can learn more on how to grow your business or how to improve your clinical skills as a Pilates instructor in the physical therapy world. Thanks for listening.
All right. So welcome to the podcast. Today we have a special guest in all the way from Hawaii. We have Dr. Randon in. And with that said, before we get started, today is the very first day we're doing this. We have a sponsor for our podcast, and our sponsor is Envibe Life. And it is a website, a holistic website for mindfulness, for awareness, and it's hosted by my wife, Cheryl. So there's my plug for our sponsor today, Envibe Life, ENVIBE, envibelife.com. So before we get started, let me introduce my guest today. Dr. Randon, tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. So born and raised in the islands here in Hawaii. Left the island for the first time when I was 18 to pursue, I didn't even know what I was going to get into in college. Long story short, I ended up, going to PT school. I actually wanted to be a veterinarian, believe it or not.
I thought about that as well, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, life, took a turn and ended up working with humans instead. And so, I went to Loma Linda University in Southern California, San Bernardino. I guess that's where McDonald's started, if no one's familiar with that.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's the claim to fame of San Bernardino, I guess, aside from Loma Linda. But
what led you to PT school versus veterinarian school? Was it just a few sequence of events, or what was that? What was that sequence, or what was that change?
Well, I think in high school there was a couple different routes. I was a jock. I played multiple sports, and I actually wanted to be an athletic trainer, and it was a toss up between those two things. And I think as I was looking for colleges, I looked at like the places I wanted to be, and it was either going to be the Pacific Northwest or San Diego. And so those two schools, San Diego State and Washington State, never ended up going there, but they both offered those programs, and I was like, okay, well, if I don't get into one, I'll try the other. Ended up not getting into any of them, and counselor's like, hey, why don't you try physical therapy? It's similar to athletic training, and in many ways you can actually, it's more diverse.
Yeah.
And so you could work with athletic teams if you wanted to, or you could be in a clinical setting. And so I was like, sure, why not? It's a doctorate level program. That was something that was kind of the criteria as well, and that I had in mind, and the rest is history. Just
nice.
Pursued physical therapy. Yeah.
So you left the islands to head to Southern California to do your PT training. And then did you go right back to the islands after that? Or tell me a little bit about that what brought you back to Hawaii? Because I know you're there now. So let's talk about that for a moment.
Yeah, so I actually got married, and my wife is from San Diego. And that was also one of the things, like, where do we actually want to start a family? And, Hawaii is just a dream destination. And like I always, said that I would want to raise my kids in Hawaii, in the ocean. That's how I was raised. And so I also wanted to be in a smaller community and not so big city. And as I was in school in Southern California, as it's big. And so I was like, I don't want to raise my kids in the city. And so we kind of made that decision collectively, and she also wanted to be in a, kind of an environment where it was easier and not so many distractions, and so I was like, well, I'm from Hawaii, my family's here, at least one of our families nearby, for some support, and so we chose to come back to Hawaii.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
And how long were you gone? What was that time frame?
So I went out to Hawaii I was in Southern California for about 10 years. Uh, I did work out there, a couple of different
Gotcha.
gigs in Southern California and San Diego, and then also in Monterey, Central California. And
Got
then
it.
so I was there for 3 years after physical therapy school, and then we decided to move back out here.
And is your wife a physical therapist too?
No, so she is actually a school psychologist, and so
Okay.
that's one of the reasons why we stayed out in California for that long.
Got
Because
it.
she ended up getting a good job out there.
For some reason, I was mistaken thinking she was a PT, but as you noticed, I was like, I'm not sure this is right. As I was asking that question, I wasn't sure if I was right there or not. So, okay. Thinking
Yeah.
of something totally different there. All right. Now, so in that time, you came back to your hometown, correct? You came back to your community where you had grown up and where you knew people, you had roots. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's funny because I actually, Hawaii, there's eight islands, and I actually was born and raised on the Big Island, Hawaii, where that big, lava flow happened a few years ago. Um, and actually about 10 miles from where I actually grew up, that's where that lava flow happened.
Yeah.
And um, it's definitely a little bit more rural on that island. It's bigger as well, hence the name Big Island. And my wife actually didn't really um, feel that island as much. And so I was like, you know what? I'll go to any island as long as I'm in Hawaii. And so wherever you want to go, let's go. And so
Got it. Got
we
it.
ended up in Kauai, which is one of the more smaller. It's one of the smaller islands, about 70,000 people here. And she actually, we ended up starting a family pretty immediately. So she's a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, and so that's
Got it.
yeah.
And so you went from San Diego. I'm sorry, Southern California, San Bernardino, huge area, millions of people, and now you're in a pretty
Mhm.
small, pretty small space. And tell me about kind of what led to, first of all, your Pilates experience, and then we'll talk a little bit about what kind of led to you getting into business on your own. So how'd you find Pilates, or how did it find you first?
So I guess that story kind of goes back to PT school. I took we had like an elective. I don't know if all programs do this, but the last year we have like elective, like alternative type therapies.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah, and so that was one of them, was Pilates. And it was, it wasn't a long, it was like maybe a 2 week stint there. One of the professors I was teaching cardiopulmonary she was I think BASI certified
Yep.
instructor. And so she actually taught us some Pilates, routines. And I remember taking that class and I was like, man, this is this is not for me, like I can't see this, is like bracing and like isometrics, and like it was hard. And I was like, there's no way I'm gonna do this. But little did I know, like as I was practicing, a lot of the moves and core work is founded in Pilates. And so I was like, man, I was doing this stuff and I didn't even realize
Yep.
that I was implementing Pilates in my practice, throughout. And so I guess what led me to it 10 years later was my wife actually got really into. She took a couple classes. Her and her friend just got into it after giving birth and trying to find a way to exercise that was not as aggressive, I guess, because
Sure.
her and I are used to like lifting weights and doing that stuff. And she had heard from her friend like, oh, Pilates was like a game changer for her. And so she got into it, ended up taking a reformer class, and she's like, all right, I know you study Pilates. I know you teach it in your to your clients, but you haven't gotten on a reformer. And I think before you make a judgment call and like not implement this and be able to give this to other people, I think you should take a reformer Pilates class. And so I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And so I did. And it's funny, man. It was like, yeah, I've never experienced anything like it. I was like, man, this is like, once I got my legs in the straps and I was like, all right, people need to, experience this. And so it was pretty much her like convincing me to take a class, and that from then on, I would say also like it's funny when they say like there's that saying like when you get older, like you're more resistant to change, but as I've gotten I guess more advanced in my career and all that, I actually became more pliable or flexible to different things. And so yeah, that's Pilates was kind of a new thing, and it was exciting, and I felt like I could definitely. I was like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna make this work, but I want to try and pursue this. And then I found you on, I think it was on one of the groups or something, or maybe I listened to a podcast, or I usually find that that's one or two ways: is podcasts or actually finding you on like in a Facebook group.
Yeah,
And
I
I
love
found
it.
like many of my mentors and just other PTs on this platform as well. So
And when we
I don't know if I
first
answered the
met,
question, but yeah.
yeah, no, that's great. No, I love it. And when we first met, you were at a point where you had done some work on the reformer. You had done some training, and you were like, "Hey, I've done this," and you kind of were already drinking the Kool-Aid as far as you knew how it felt in your body, and you were just like, what do I do now? How do I start implementing this, incorporating this into my Pilates practice?" And that's kind of where you were at when we met. You had a little bit on the of training. And I know you've done more, and I know you've implemented things. So let's back up a little bit and let's talk about not talking about Pilates, but let's talk about the first business that you opened. How did you end up in business for yourself? Was it in Hawaii when you came back, or was it when you were in California before you came back and you got your feet wet there, and then you decided to move back and do it there? So tell me a little bit about your business and how that was born.
Yeah, so I actually always wanted, like, right out of the gates, I always wanted to own my own business. But a lot of my professors were actually like also advising against it. Like, as soon as you get out of PT school, like, hey, you should get experience. And I think that's kind of the mindset I had for many years. I was like, all right, I need more experience. I'm not experienced enough to actually open up my own gig. And so it was really like, 10 years later that I was like, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm actually tired of working for someone. I want to be more creative. I want to create my own programs, and I feel like there's got to be a better way than just showing up for a job 8 to 5 every day and grinding it out. And like, I guess at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, I'm helping people, but I just didn't feel fulfilled as well. And so
Yeah.
I decided to make that like jump. I was kind of still working with my former employer, and I actually, got the groundwork going as far as like getting my business license and all that stuff. And it probably took about a year and a half before I actually started seeing patients like through my my own business. And it was through like I worked out of a gym at first, and I was seeing athletes like out of a CrossFit gym. And this is back in Hawaii, by the way. This wasn't in California. So everything kind of started back here in Hawaii. And so, it was very small. I was only seeing 1 or 2 people like a month, and then I was working my other gig. And then, the guy I was working for, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to retire. Like, you can either take over this practice or, people kind of know your name, I guess." And he pretty much like just, stepped out, and I just stepped right into his business. And I had a referral source, like referral sources, I should say, through the insurance model. And, I just, for the last year and a half, I've been doing that and trying to make things better. And, there's no systems in place when I took over this practice. And, um, and so now I'm trying to, I think that's the next step is like, making sure that I have solid systems and, so, I'm still learning every day. I'm like, by no means like have it down. And, you think if you take over a practice, like it's already like, you already got it set, but in reality, like it's constantly evolving and changing. And, I think I also have to, and that's the one thing about me is like, I'm also very like moldable and teachable and coachable.
Yeah.
So I'm not like, I'm not stuck in one way. Like I feel like there's still better ways to do things, so
I love
I'm
that.
constantly reaching out.
And that makes sense. Think about it. You were talking about working out of a CrossFit gym, CrossFit box, and then you're, getting into your own place and then teaching. Now you're in a situation where you're incorporating Pilates into your practice. CrossFit and Pilates are very different. And that's that's awesome. I think that's great that you've been able, you can reach out and expose your work to many different types of people through being involved with both of those types of worlds, because those are different worlds completely. And I love that. And a lot of people want to kind of like put you in one box and not have to, like, you can't leave that box. You got to stay in that one world. So as I was listening to that story, I love that about, starting in a CrossFit box. And so I know you still teach some CrossFit style things with what you do as a PT every day, but now you've been into Pilates for the last, so let's go back to Pilates. When did you start incorporating your Pilates? When did you get your reformer and start actually like throwing people on a reformer in PT? I know we've talked about this privately, but tell me a little bit about that kind of that shift and bringing Pilates into your world where it wasn't in that existing clinic when you started it, or when you took over it, and say it that way.
Right. I think what gave me the push was after I took your course, just kind of learning how to actually do that. And because those reformers are not, they're not, they're pretty spendy, like they can be anyway.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at the prices on those, and I'm like, man, how am I? Because I wanted to, I was looking into, after taking your course as well, like providing an alternative service. And that's kind of what I was doing in the CrossFit box as well, is like just offering like preventative, like a lot of it is preventative. Yeah, they have injuries and they come to me, but a lot of it was preventative. And so I wanted to offer an alternative service aside from physical therapy. So I think that motivated me to just like take the plunge. And like, anyway, I found, I reached out to some, based on some of the tips and advice that I got from your course, is like reaching out to and networking in the community, and found actually, well, my wife actually was taking classes with one of the studios here, and she ended up wanting to sell and kind of buy new equipment. And so I ended up getting my first reformer through this local Pilates studio that's probably the biggest on the island, I would say. And so they're pretty successful up on the North Shore of our island. And I would say that's kind of where all the, for lack of a better like way of saying it, but where the money's at, I guess, or where the, where people are willing to spend on their health is at. And so I was trying to tap into that community, but anyway, like that's kind of how I got the reformer. And then I ended up getting a second reformer from same studio. She wanted to buy. And then now I'm up to a trap table. So I have a trap table and 2 reformers, and it's kind of slowly building from there.
Nice.
My next step is bringing on an instructor to kind of work that side and perhaps provide like singles and duets, and maybe like a variable like Pilates class where you do reformer and mat at the same time. But I'm in the process of doing that actually, as you know, right now.
Nice.
Thinking of bringing on an instructor. So
Now, what kind of equipment are you buying? Is it do you know the brand offhand? Is
is
it
it
Balance Body?
Balance
Yeah.
Body?
Okay, that's what I thought. I know we
Yep.
talked about it, but I'm talking to someone right now who's buying some equipment from a studio that I think is closing down because of COVID. And so people, I'm telling this right now to people all the time. If you're a physical therapist and you're interested in Pilates, reach out in your community, because right now the Pilates industry is hurting. And these people are trying to either make their rent or they're shutting down and they're trying to figure it out. So there's equipment. There's going to be more equipment available now than ever, at better prices now than ever, because the prices that I'm chatting with this lady are definitely better than what they would have been for sale for 6 months ago or a year ago. So I love that. And so you got this equipment in there, and how are you incorporating it with your patients? Are you throwing them on the reformer as a part of their PT session? Or are you selling them something to come in after PT and do fitness, or a combination of those things? Tell me a little bit about kind of how you're using that equipment and what your plan might be moving forward.
So right now, because I'm a solo practitioner, and so I haven't really been teaching Pilates, like just Pilates for fitness, but more for rehab. And so I pretty much everyone that walks through my door gets on the reformer. I have this guy who he had a stroke within the last year, and before I got him on there, I was like, man, how am I gonna get this guy on this reformer? Because I have one of those the studio reformers, right? So it's pretty low.
Yeah.
And one of my things was like, man, I got to get a clinical reformer. It's bigger, but I just got these for such a good deal. And so I was like, well, I'm going to make this work. Right.
Yeah.
And so I've been getting even that guy on the reformer, and just, doing leg series type stuff and arm series, arms and straps. And he has his balance and coordination with gait has I've never, as far as training someone in with a stroke, this is we're talking he has no function of his upper extremity.
Yeah.
One side, very minimal of his leg, his lower extremity, and the reformer has actually been very beneficial for him, from what I've seen, from a functional standpoint. It's man, this thing actually really works. I'm pretty impressed with it. And so that's what I've been doing. I pretty much everyone that comes in, I get them on the reformer. And then now that I got my trap table, I'm incorporating stuff on the trap table.
Yeah, and that's where I use the trap table a lot for those low-level clients that have had strokes or certain injuries where they're low level. The trap table gives them a real stable base of support, and then you get very creative with where you hang the springs and what you're doing, whether they're pulling or pushing. They don't feel like they're moving as much as they are on the reformer, but the reformer with someone who's a neuro patient, it's fun because you're not doing your typical exercises. You might be doing the same exercise you normally learn from Pilates, but you have to modify and adjust. Or for me, I had an MS patient. I'd tie TheraBands around her knees and hold the TheraBand while she would go do footwork, and it was the only way to keep her knees in place. But if we did that, she could do the footwork, and if we didn't do that, she couldn't do the footwork. And it took me a while to figure that out. But and I really felt like I was doing a lot of modifying. But once we found that modification allowed her to do. She hadn't done a leg press in 15 years of sitting in a wheelchair, and to be able to do it in a gravity lessened situation. Once she found it, she was crying tears of joy for moving in a way that she hadn't moved in forever. And if I would have said, I'm not going to even try with her because she's a neuro patient, I would have missed out on that opportunity to really help her. And for me, just like what you're saying, once I saw that it helped those patients, it became wow, if I can help the low level patients, then it's going to be easy to help my back pain patients, which is what I see most of the time. So those low level challenges, spinal cord injury patients, MS, strokes, they were fun to work with. They were hard because it wasn't something I spent a lot of time seeing. but people would find me and because they wanted to try Pilates. Here's a situation where me being a typical PT, they wouldn't have came and found me. But because I was a Pilates PT and using Pilates in the rehab, that's why they showed up. That's why they were there. And once they were able to move in places and ways that they couldn't in any other way, in any other PT setting, it was pretty powerful, man. It was really fun. So I love that that's the story that you went with that kind of stuck out, right? Because I've helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. I mean, thousands of people through Pilates. I mean, I've been teaching it for 20 years now through my 18 years, excuse me, as a PT, and we've just helped so many people. But it's those really low-level challenge patients that no one found a way to help them. Those are the ones that stick out, right? So I'll never forget those people. So let me ask you this: who did you do your training with for some of your Pilates training? Like I can't remember if it was Basti or Balance Body or who did you end up working with? Polestar, maybe?
Yeah, Polestar. I went with Polestar. Just kind of researching and all that, and I found a clinic out in Arizona that was teaching the comprehensive Pilates, and both my wife and I took the training because they offered a clinical and studio side as well for training with that comprehensive.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so you say you approach or you give every patient gets an opportunity to get on the reformer. Do you find that those patients, once they get on the reformer, are a little bit more excited to come to PT the next time? They're a little bit more in the game instead of kind of being resistant?
Yeah, it's been a game changer. I think it's super unique. There's not, at least my experience working in different clinics and whatnot, you don't see that, the apparatus, the reformer, the trap table. And so when people come in, they're already looking wow, what are these things? It's like, there's different ideas on it, but they're just like, wow, I've never done this. Just quick story. I just had a veteran, and this guy's used to, he just goes to PT, for the last 18, 20 years, I think he was saying. And he said that he's never had a physical therapy experience because I guess a lot of his experience has been with the VA and their specific programs. And on our island, we don't have a specific clinic that's designated for VAs. And so people are just in network with the VA. And so I have this one guy, he's had chronic back pain and ankle injuries. And he said that his balance is dramatically better. And he's he told me to when he first came in, he was like, oh man, I got another young guy, because he's had so many experiences, young guys, old guys. And it's oh man, I know I'm going to have to change with this guy. And then he just told me, because I just discharged him this week. And he's like, you know what? I honestly got to apologize because I honestly thought that you weren't going to be able to help me just for the last 18 years, So I was losing hope in PT, and then comes in and starts, he's on the reformer, he's on the trap table, and he just said his body is so much better, he has less pain, and his balance is night and day. And so I was like, man, that's amazing. Just getting on. I was like, I didn't necessarily do anything. Well, I guess the thing that was different is put them on these machines, and you get them moving in neurologically appropriate patterns and whatnot, and it just kind of rewires the system.
That's right. So. There's nothing magical about it. It's not magic, but there's something powerful about it. And it's actually its simplicity, in my opinion, that what makes Pilates so powerful. But what is also a challenge, the biggest challenge, is incorporating it as a mindfulness in a way that you're breathing and you're paying attention mentally while doing the physical work. And that, to me, is what makes Pilates the game changer. And when people find that and understand that, that's where they're really able to see long-term benefits, whether it's going out in the garden and doing something in the garden, or cleaning up around the house. I know you have a young child, bending over to deal with a young baby. Those are things that, for me, the gym didn't teach me. being strong from the gym didn't teach me anything about how to be mindful or aware and how to protect myself and help my back. Now, maybe I wasn't doing it right, but Pilates did teach me those things. And at the time, Pilates is what allowed me to really become passionate about being a PT again, because I was at a point where I wasn't liking it. But I'll go back to Hawaii. We're going to bring this full circle. The Big Island. I was doing a marathon there. I talk about this all the time. My story of doing a half marathon. I was doing a half marathon in Hawaii on June 23rd. It was to raise money for the Stroke Association. It was 2002. And I did a practice marathon, half marathon on Cinco de Mayo, 6 weeks earlier in LA in Pacific Palisades. And the only difference between Cinco de Mayo and June 23rd was that I'd gotten better in Pilates, and it was all up here in my head.
Wow.
And I dropped 15 minutes off of my time. So over a minute a mile. So it was 13 miles, right? So I dropped from the time of Cinco de Mayo to the June 23rd marathon, which was in hot Hawaii compared to cool LA at that time of year. May 5th was nice in LA. June 23rd was hot in Hawaii for what I was used to, right? But what happened in that time frame, I'd started Pilates that year in January, and by June 23rd, something clicked with Pilates to where I was able to walk the whole marathon, looking all goofy and stuff, breathing, focusing. Where's my head? Where's my shoulders? Where's my abdominals? And I knocked 15 minutes off of my race. And that was my proof that Pilates was doing. I wasn't doing my my training for the marathon wasn't giving me that much time off. It was all for my mental side. And that's what I learned from Pilates. And I was just blown away. And not to mention things like playing softball and, just standing up taller. I went from being 6 foot back to 6'2" again because I'd started standing up straight. But those are my stories or my things that the sequence that happened that made me believe in it, made me say, I can share this with every patient that comes in the door. And it's not going to be for everybody, but it's going to be something that really helps more than it doesn't. It helps way more than it doesn't. And again, one of my big things is like once I expose them to PT, then when they're done with PT, I've got a situation in a program that they can continue doing, whether it's one-on-one or in a group of 4 people, to continue to progress and get well doing the thing that they loved. And when you offer them that out of PT, it keeps them around. It keeps them in my world, month to month, year to year. And that's one of the things that I love about it is because once these people, just like once you saw the benefit in your body and how you loved it, what did you want to do? You want to learn it and share it with your clients. And that's where you're at now. You're in that phase of sharing it with every one of your clients. And now it's a time to build up that wellness side with the trainers and other people working with you so that when you're done and you discharge as veteran, you move them right over into a place where they can continue doing the work at a different price point, different whatever, to allow the plan to continue so that the guy that loves you and says, man, you've helped me more than anybody in the last 18 years actually continues to stay in your world and you continue to see him. Even if you're not seeing him in PT, you've exhausted his benefits, but he can still come in and do a session or a duet or a class or whatever. And that's my favorite thing is seeing people walking out here right now and seeing people in a group class that are old PT patients that maybe I haven't seen in a year, 2 or 5, but they're still in my world. And again, that's one of the best things about it. Now, Randon, I love it, man. I love it. I knew we would get on a good conversation here and we'd get to know each other in a different ways than we already do know each other. Cause we're talking business and trying to move that needle forward. And that was basically another little tidbit of advice of moving that needle forward. But I love that you're at a place where I'm talking to a girl right now who's in the middle of doing a lot of the things that you're doing. And I told her, I said, hey, watch the podcast today because Randon's just a little further along the line than you are as far as with the Pilates and implementing it and this and that, not PT or anything, just from the Pilates side. And that's what's really cool is because now you've seen the positives, you're seeing the outcomes, and you're seeing patients that respond to it that maybe wouldn't have responded to your more traditional therapy that you would have been offering pre having Pilates in your tool belt. And again, that's just really fun to see. And now that I've known you for a year and a half, it's my first time we've talked in a couple months. So hearing what's new and what's changed is always a fun process as well. So with that said, my man, I know people they want to know, how do I get in touch with this person? How do I get in touch with that person? So what's the best way for someone to get in touch with you if they have questions about, hey, this is something that, something you're doing is something I want to do? How do they reach out to you? Is it best through Facebook? Do you have an email address? What's the best?
I would say both. You can reach out to me either way. And I can say my email is info@puremotion-pt.com.
Okay.
And also Facebook is a great way. That's how I met you and everyone else. So I'm pretty up to date on the social media side. So if you DM me or whatnot, it's funny, sometimes I'll check my DMs more than my text messages. And so you can DM me at it's RandocPT is my tag on Instagram, or Kauai Therapy and Wellness. So I got two. That's my business Instagram, and then my personal is at RandocPT.
Awesome. And we'll make sure we have all that tagged in the descriptions and link so that people can go and look those up and see those. And here we are. We're shaking hands with 2:00, and I got a patient rolling in here in just a minute. And the patient that's rolling here in just a minute is my 15-year client. I reference her all the time. I met her 15 years ago when I opened. She came in that summer. Introduced her to Pilates through our physical therapy. Stayed around. She took one class a week until she retired. When she retired, she started taking 2 classes a week. She would always see me for PT when she needed it, but it was never necessarily every year. Right now I'm seeing her for a condition that is stirred up. And so I've been seeing her once a week for the last probably 2 months to get this under control. And then I won't see her for some time, and then I'll see her when I need to. But here's that long-term relationship. Even when I see her for PT today, today's Wednesday, she saw one of my trainers on Monday for a whole entire Pilates session, seeing me today for a PT session, which will include a little bit of Pilates through the session. And then she'll be back tomorrow or Friday to see the trainer again. So again, this is someone 15-year relationship, comes to see me anytime she needs me for PT. But when she's not seeing me for PT, twice a week in that group training, sometimes private trainings, it depends on kind of how she's feeling. And it's a really fun process. Again, that's a long-term relationship. She gives me gift cards for Christmas every year. She gives my kids presents when they graduate and move over from school to school. And it's just because of this long-term relationship that if I was doing traditional PT 15 years ago, she wouldn't still be in my world. No way. So that's one of those things. That's why I love Pilates, and I always love to share the message of why people know more about Pilates than they do physical therapy, and that's why we like to share this out with the world. So, Randon, man, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. You and I will get together real soon and have a power call and move that needle forward some more, my friend. And again, just thanks for your time, and we'll talk real soon, buddy.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And if you did, could you do us a favor and leave some love and write us a review? My name is Stephen Dunn. I help physical therapists incorporate Pilates into their physical therapy practice. If you would like more information on how you can incorporate Pilates into your physical therapy practice, then like my Facebook page, Pilates for PTs.